know that ticket prices can actually go down right before the game? That's where Game Time comes in. Game Time tracks ticket prices in real time from thousands of trusted sellers, then shows you all the best deals. So we can get tickets at the last minute for up to 60% off. Download Game Time now.
Hey folks, welcome into the Cam Rogers Show. Happy Friday, May 11th, 2018. I am Cam Rogers. Hit me up on Twitter at Mr. Rogers99. I've got you covered for the next hour here, getting your Friday set, pre-game with me, if you will, as we go through the latest NFL headlines, as we always do, to kick things off. And then I've got my top 10 NFL offseason moves. So you got big-time names going to new places. I'll count you down from 10 all the way to 1. Then the top 5 LeBron James playoff games versus the Boston Celtics, getting you set for that Eastern Conference Finals between the Celts and the Cavs. And then a final word about what's next for Colin Kaepernick and the ongoing collusion case against the NFL. So with that, let's get to today's top story here across the NFL, and it centers on Matt Patricia, the current head coach of the Detroit Lions, and he's in some hot water right now. So Patricia met with reporters yesterday as part of a previously scheduled press conference. Great timing, by the way. So a story surfaced on Wednesday night in regard to an indictment from 1996 on a charge of aggravated sexual assault that occurred during spring break. Patricia began the press conference with a planned statement saying, quote, 22 years ago, I was falsely accused of something very, very serious. There were claims made about me that never happened. He went on to answer a total of 13 questions, one of them pertaining to whether he thought the issue would come up at all during interview processes throughout his career, and he said the following: it was never an issue in subsequent interviews. All right, and asked in terms of what happened that night on spring break, Patricia basically deflected and just said he was falsely accused. So when asked about specifics on this matter, Patricia didn't get into them. Didn't get into any of the granular stuff, none of the details. Basically just said, I've been falsely accused. This is not true. This is made up. And so it's interesting. He later on cemented that he is 100% the head coach of the Detroit Lions. I don't think that's really up to him, to be honest with you. I think it's up to general manager Bob Quinn, but I digress here. It's safe to say this was more of a blanket macro denial here. Like I said, with Patricia not offering any specifics on the matter, like, you know, saying that I never knew this girl, or we never interacted, or I wasn't even on spring break at the time. None of that stuff. Patricia just straight up said it's false. Now, it's unclear if the victim will tell her story to a court of public opinion. That remains to be seen, and if she doesn't, then perhaps this will all be forgotten about. But there is very real possibility that this won't be forgotten, and that Matt Patricia will have to carry this on into OTAs and training camp and preseason and, of course, the regular season for the Detroit Lions. It's not a good start if you're a new head coach in the National Football League, and Patricia has been in the NFL for quite some time, more specifically with the New England Patriots. Patricia has Patriots ties with GM Bob Quinn. We have a weigh-in. I want you guys chiming in here on the Cam Rogers Show. And should Matt Patricia step down as head coach? I want you to hit me up in the comments section here on Facebook Live as well as YouTube. Let me know. Now, of course, in what we all learn in civics in high school, you are innocent until proven guilty, right? So we can presumptively give Patricia the benefit of the doubt here, but still, perhaps there is more information to still come out of all of this. But this was something that happened in 1996. I don't know what kind of evidence is still out there. But Matt Patricia, one of the new head coaches in the ranks in the NFL this year, off to a pretty bad PR start here. And you know what's interesting? The Patriots recently released a statement, and they didn't find anything on this when they went through their interview process with Patricia. So the Patriots had no idea. The Lions obviously had no idea. But the Detroit newspaper that released this story obviously had an idea about it. and whoever leaked it to them really is up for debate. But obviously not a great beginning here for Patricia as the new head coach of the Detroit Lions. Be sure to let me know what you think about his future there in the Motor City, particularly you Lions fans out there. What do you think of this? Are you in the Patricia camp here, or are you now stepping off and saying, wait a minute, maybe this guy isn't for us? And of course, you're on the Cam Rogers Show. We appreciate when you weigh in. All right, let's get to some more happier news. How about this? ESPN officially naming Jason Witten as the lead analyst on Monday Night Football. This is no surprise. This has been reported on this program before, but it is now cemented that Witten will be in the broadcast booth with Joe Tessitore, who will be the play-by-play man there for Monday Night Football. Also been reported on this show, Booger McFarland will indeed be the field analyst for Monday Night Football as well. Lisa Salters, I believe the only remaining person from the broadcast crew, my producer Harris is saying yes, from a year ago on Monday Night Football. So big time changes here with Tessitore now as the play-by-play man and Sean McDonough moving on to do college football yet again. Witten there as the lead analyst. John Gruden, of course, the new head coach of the Oakland Raiders. And then Lisa Salters there, sideline reporter. Booger McFarland as a field analyst, I'm actually excited to see. I've mentioned on this show before that ESPN has experimented, if you will, with field analysts before, with Louis Riddick during the Pro Bowl last year. So perhaps they were in preparation here for a field analyst for the Monday Night Football schedule. So this crew will actually call the Raiders versus Rams game in the later window on their Monday Night Football doubleheader. So usually the case is the main Monday Night Football crew calls that first game on the schedule, but it's the Jets and the Lions. So they put the main crew for the Raiders game with John Gruden as the head coach. I think that makes sense there. Still up for finding out in terms of who will be broadcasting that Jets-Lions game in that early window on Monday Night Football. But there you go. We do have a weigh-in for you guys as well. How do you think Jason Witten will perform as a broadcaster? He's a Hall of Famer, one of the great guys in the NFL. Tony Romo recently sang his praise for Romo. But how about the broadcast booth? Because sometimes jumping from player to broadcaster is a lot more difficult than people realize. So be sure to let me know in comments what you think about Jason Witten becoming an analyst there in the broadcast booth. And I'm excited to see what he can do. He's an intelligent guy, very smart. ESPN did its fair share of vetting here, going through tryouts with Brett Favre, which apparently didn't go very well, Kurt Warner, Matt Hasselbeck, Louis Riddick, a few other guys as well. So Witten got that big-time job. And, of course, Peyton Manning got offered like $10 million, and Peyton was like, no thanks. All right, let's get to the next headline here. Mark Ingram will indeed be suspended officially for the first 4 games of the NFL season. The NFL has denied his appeal here. So it's 4 games due to PED use. And I guess the good news for Saints fans and Saints players and Ingram himself is that he can still show up to workouts, OTAs, training camp, and compete in the preseason. Obviously cannot play in the first 4 games of the regular season. So with that, guess whose draft stock in fantasy football circles is skyrocketing right now? Alvin Kamara. All right, had a big-time breakout year at rookie last year. Now he's got an opportunity here to be a big-time factor in the Saints offense for those first 4 games and, of course, going forward, but especially those first 4 games. And as you all begin to think about fantasy football, I know it's May, but it's never too early. Mock draft season is around the corner. And in fantasy football, it's all about opportunity. So with that is Alvin Kamara, a running back number 1 in fantasy football. Hit me up in the reaction poll. Give me a heart for yes, a like for no. And I'll tell you one thing, the Saints are going to continue to run the rock. Why? Drew Brees is not getting any younger. You want to protect that franchise arm there so he is fresh for the playoffs and hopefully for Super Bowl 53 if you are a Saints fan. So it's going to be controlling the line of scrimmage, utilizing that duo with Mark Ingram and Alvin Kamara. But Kamara here will be on his lonesome in essence, for those first 4 games. So let me know in the reaction poll what you think about Kamara as an RB number 1 in fantasy football. Ingram will be out the first 4 games there. All right, so there's actually been a few notable suspensions so far, some maybe more notable than others. Ingram is a part of that list there. We've got some other players as well that I want to flash here real quick. So there's Ingram, there's Vontaze Burfict, which is like death, taxes, and Vontaze Burfict getting suspended. Thomas Davis was kind of a sad situation. He released a very emotional video on Twitter saying that he had no idea he was, in the wrong or anything like that. Corey Lugit, Vidal Alexander, and kind of a fun footnote, Mark Sanchez, who is currently a free agent, is suspended for the first 4 games of the NFL season, and he may be unemployed by the time the regular season comes around. All right, I mentioned Peyton Manning earlier about perhaps becoming a broadcaster. How about being a part of the ownership group with the Carolina Panthers? So billionaire Ben Navarro has reached out to Peyton Manning to gauge his interest in being a part of the Carolina Panthers ownership group. And Manning is reportedly considering the offer here, which is interesting, although he did tell Peter King last year, quote, "It wasn't the right place for me right now in terms of an ownership role." Well, of course, it's no longer right now. It's 1 year later, and Manning has obviously received a lot of lucrative offers across the sport, talking about networks that have reportedly been willing to pay Manning around $10 million to be an analyst for their broadcast. And as of now, there was no front runner to purchase the Panthers. Of course, Jerry Richardson has been shopping it since the allegations of creating a culture of sexual harassment. So, yeah, there's going to be some turnover there at the ownership portion of the Carolina Panthers, and perhaps Peyton Manning could be a part of that. Stay tuned. And this is, of course, a developing story. We'll be keeping you updated here on the Cam Rogers Show in regards to Peyton. All right, let's get to Dez Bryant here. You guys always love the Dez Bryant updates. Here's what I have for you. Jerry Jones still believes in him, despite breaking ties. So that makes sense. Jerry Jones said that Dez can still make a big-time contribution here. And I guess this is a nice little consolation prize for Dez Bryant, considering there's a report out there that most teams won't even offer Dez the minimum to bring him on. So that according to Adam Schefter. So the logic was that Dez would see his market pick up steam after the NFL draft, and perhaps these 5 teams here that I have for you, we'll look into them. My top 5 new landing spots for Dez Bryant. New England at 1, I got Seattle at 2, 49ers at 3, Colts at 4, and the Houston Texans there at number 5. Let me give you my reasoning for every single one here. So the Patriots, they got about $14 million in salary cap space. Lost Brandon Cooks and Danny Amendola. I know they have Julian Edelman and Malcolm Mitchell, but Dez won't be expensive. And it just seems like a Patriots move, right? Bring in a veteran receiver. Remember the Brandon Lloyd days, the Chad Ochocinco days, and all this stuff? Randy Moss as well towards the twilight of his career. Maybe New England brings in Dez Bryant, puts him into the slot, and they find a way to make him effective there. Plus, there's a chance for Dez to get a ring. So, I mean, that's a positive. Seattle, it's more about a need. I mentioned in a few episodes ago about Brandon Marshall and how he's on the open market. And Marshall, of course, is in the process of visiting with the Seattle Seahawks, according to reports out there. So Seattle's in the market for wide receivers. Why not get Dez Bryant? I think Dez Bryant is a better wide receiver than Brandon Marshall. Now, we are comparing washed-up receivers to washed-up receivers here, but Seattle has Doug Baldwin and then Marcus Johnson and Tyler Lockett, who was supposed to be a breakout guy but just hasn't been of late. Then you got Tanner McAvoy, who's just straight up bad. So huge need for Seattle. I think maybe they take a look at Dez Bryant, although they are in the process of looking at Brandon Marshall. San Francisco, salary cap space, and that's really it, all I have for my reasoning on that. Maybe there's a chance that John Lynch gives Dez a call. I just don't see where San Francisco fits him into this offense. I think they like their wide receivers right now, got a couple of good ones throughout offseason time and the draft as well. Of course, they got Dante Pettis there out of Washington, and of course, there's still Marcus Goodwin and Trent Taylor, who I think could be a Pro Bowler very soon. But with that, I do want to hear from you guys in the comments section. Is Dez Bryant still wide receiver number 1? I'm going to assume you all will say no. I have the Colts at 4. A lot of salary cap space there for the Colts. Big time need as well. They weren't big sponsors, or not big spenders, I should say, in the offseason time. I thought maybe they'd get Andrew Norwell or something like that. They didn't. So they got a lot of cap space here to play with. And after T.Y. Hilton, there's a big drop-off. They lost Dante Moncrief to the Jacksonville Jaguars, right? And, yeah, they bring in Ryan Grant, but he failed the physical at the Baltimore Ravens, might I add. So you're going to rely on that guy to be your wide receiver number 2? I'm not. So maybe the Indianapolis Colts take a look at Dez Bryant there. And then the Houston Texans. So DeAndre Hopkins a few weeks ago posted a picture of Dez in a Houston Texans jersey. Looks pretty good in it with the 88 there in the blue, red, and white. And I'll tell you what, Dez doesn't have to move very far, right? Going from Dallas to Houston. You won't have to go to like Seattle or New England or anything like that. And I think Houston's building a good team. They'll be a force in the AFC South next year. Got to shore up that offensive line a little bit. But Deshaun Watson is an exciting player. And DeAndre Hopkins, as I mentioned, Will Fuller, a good spark plug down the field there. So Patriots, Seahawks, 49ers, Colts, Texans. I've seen the Jets. I've seen the Giants. The Giants aren't going to bring him in, guys. Giants is not going to happen. Redskins, not going to happen either. Maybe they have a salary cap space, but I don't see him fitting in that offense there. So there you go. That's the deal with Dez Bryant. All right, speaking of wide receivers here, and the Giants, might I add, Victor Cruz wants to return to Big Blue. And we are talking about a guy who could not make the roster with the Chicago Bears that was absolutely inept in the aerial attack in 2017, and Cruz was not featured on that team. We're talking about Josh Bellamy and Kevin White and Kendall Wright. All these guys were presumed better than Victor Cruz on the Chicago Bears. So, nonetheless, Victor Cruz told TMZ Sports he'd want to rejoin the Giants. As you see on your screen, the Bears signed him to a one-year deal last season, but he didn't even make it to the regular season with Chicago. So he's obviously not ruling out any team in terms of this comeback, but he was kind of forced to give an answer in terms of his preference. He says the New York Giants. It makes sense to me. He wants to go back to a team that he had a couple of good years with, but it was kind of a sour end between Giants leadership and Victor Cruz. Now, of course, there's a new GM in town and Dave Gettleman, right? And a new head coach and Pat Shurmur, so maybe things are all but forgotten here. So Victor Cruz still hoping to get back into the NFL. Don't worry, I'm not doing my top 5 teams for Victor Cruz. It's not going to be like Kurt Warner, Dallas Cowboys, top team there, Denver Broncos, etc. for Kurt Warner. Anyway, let's go to the next headline here, and talking about a receiver actually on the Giants. Co-owner John Mara said, quote, "It's not the first contract negotiation we've ever had." So he's pretty confident that he'll get a deal done with OBJ here. And I've talked about OBJ many times on this program. You know, been surfaced that maybe the Giants would trade him. OBJ wants $20 million for a yearly salary, which is insane. Beckham is set to make $8.5 million in his final year of this rookie contract here. Without an extension, he will become an unrestricted free agent next spring. So, like I said, he's been subject of trade rumors. He's not going anywhere, though, yet. Maybe in 2019 he's going somewhere, but I don't think he's going anywhere in 2018. Now, I don't know if the Giants figure this out, but they better. Because if they don't get some sort of extension here before the regular season, I don't think OBJ comes back. And this is kind of synonymous with the Le'Veon Bell situation and how the Pittsburgh Steelers are literally botching that situation as well. How they have not created some sort of continuity here, chemistry with Le'Veon Bell and his agent in terms of figuring out a long-term deal. As of now, Bell is on a franchise tag. So a much better situation than Odell. Odell's on a rookie contract. He's making less than Le'Veon Bell for the 2018 season. For Beckham, is he worth $20 million a year? I don't know about that. Is he worth more than 8.5? Absolutely. I mean, Dez Bryant was in that range for his salary for 2018 with the Cowboys if he were to remain on that squad. Obviously not. But I'll tell you one thing. If there is no extension here, Odell is going to play 2018 all PO'd, and Dave Gettleman is trying to save himself here from making a big-time mistake of letting a generational wide receiver in Odell Beckham Jr. go, and I don't know if he'll be able to do that. Odell may want to go to another team where he actually feels like he is respected, right? Where he wants to, be paid and feel like he can actually get a ring, by the way, because it could be all over for Eli Manning after 2018 too, right? So we'll see. John Mara's confident, though. Stay tuned on Odell. Let me know in the comments section, will Odell be on the Giants in 2019? Like I said, I'm confident he'll be on the squad for 2018, extension or no extension. Be sure to hit me up here on the Cam Rogers Show because we do appreciate when you weigh in. All right, we got a new development here in the Colin Kaepernick collusion case against the National Football League. So, full stop. Kaepernick is alleging all 32 NFL owners are colluding against him to keep him out of the NFL. The newest development is Kaepernick has deposed Seattle Seahawks head coach Pete Carroll as well as the general manager John Schneider. What does that mean? A deposition is essentially a questioning under oath, not in a court setting. So what Kaepernick has done is, or his attorney presumably, questioned Carroll and Schneider in terms of, well, why didn't you bring me in for a workout? Because remember, it was originally planned that the Seattle Seahawks were going to bring in Kaepernick and work him out on a Monday a few weeks ago, and perhaps bring him in as the backup quarterback because Seattle had that big-time mistake or bad PR run-through with their former backup quarterback. And so Kaepernick apparently was questioned about, well, what is your plan for kneeling? And reportedly, Colin Kaepernick did not give a straightforward answer. And now there's been some muddy reporting about this. Rappaport reported one thing, Adam Schefter reported another thing. And so Kaepernick essentially deposed Pete Carroll and Schneider and asked them straightforward, why didn't you bring me in? Why didn't you sign me? Why didn't you work me out? Because we had planned on doing so. So Schneider and Carroll join Jerry Jones, Roger Goodell, Bob McNair, John Harbaugh, Ozzie Newsome as all of these figures, major figures in the NFL, that have been deposed by the Colin Kaepernick camp throughout this ongoing collusion case. Now, a little footnote here. Kaepernick was actually recently spotted working out with Eric Reed at California State University East Bay. So perhaps a comeback will arise at some point for Kaepernick. And whether it's with Seattle or not, who knows? Now, Pete Carroll has actually said before, publicly, he's not ruling out signing Colin Kaepernick. But as of now, we are not headed in a direction that perhaps shows that the Seattle Seahawks will sign Colin Kaepernick. I will have so much more on this at the end of the show because I'm going to take a more macro perspective with the final word at the end of the program here in terms of Kaepernick, Eric Reed, the national anthem debate, and so much more because it's going to be a big topic of discussion throughout the offseason here as we go through OTAs and training camp and into the regular season. It's going to be very interesting to see how many players will decide to kneel during the NFL. And oh, by the way, we got NFL owners meetings coming up later this month as well, where they will talk about the legislation perhaps where players could be required to stand. Stay tuned on that. I'll have more on the Cam Rogers Show regarding that. All right, folks, big-time quarterback from the 2018 NFL Draft has signed his rookie deal. Josh Rosen, 4-year rookie contract worth $17.84 million, an $11 million signing bonus as well. Rosen was in the team facilities for one day and signed it. And apparently that has never happened in Cardinals history, according to their owner there. So there you go. The former UCLA quarterback's contract includes a 5th-year option for 2022 because he is a first-round pick. I'll tell you what, Josh Rosen has the potential to be a successful quarterback in the opportunity that he has because you've got Sam Bradford, you've got Mike Glennon ahead of him right now, and they can be the stopgaps for Rosen as he learns this offense here with OC Mike McCoy. New head coach in Steve Wilks, so it's a fresh start for both of them, which I think is a good thing, actually. I think it's good that a new head coach is learning as well as a new quarterback. All right, so Rosen officially signing with the Cardinals. Daron Payne, by the way, signed with the Redskins. Quentin Nelson signed with the Colts. So some of these signings are starting to trickle in here, and all of them are pretty much a given, but I did want to point out Josh Rosen there going to the the Cardinals for that 4-year deal. All right, folks, one final headline, and this is just unbelievable stuff. I am going to show you a 6'7", 370-pound, 8th grade recruit. He's still growing and is bigger than some NFL offensive linemen. His name is Keontae Goodwin. He is absolutely massive, and he already has verbal football scholarship offers from Georgia, from Louisville, from Kentucky, from Western Kentucky. He has size 18 shoes. If you look at some of the pictures online, it's like him and then a bunch of little kids around him. Absolutely unbelievable size. And I'll tell you what, he will be a force in the college ranks. And I can't believe I'm saying this, and he's in 8th grade. Unbelievable stuff there. So keep an eye on Keontae Goodwin. 6'7", 370 pounds. Unbelievable. All right, folks, you're watching the Cam Rogers Show here on Chat Sports Facebook Live, presented by the Game Time app. Get up to 60% off all those last-minute sports tickets, concert tickets, and so much more. Chatsports.com/tickets is the way to go. Cam Rogers coming at you here for the Cam Rogers Show, episode 102 on this Friday morning. We thank you for coming along for the ride here. How's your Friday going? Say hi to me in the comments section. I always try to go back and respond, and I now have that blue check mark there with my professional page, so, you know, no big deal or anything. But, yeah, I think that's definitely a peaking moment for me, folks. It's all downhill after you get the blue check mark, right? All right, folks, fun segment here. I am ranking in the top 10 NFL offseason moves. So I will count you down from 10 all the way to 1. Which team has made the big-time signings? Let's start with number 10 on my list here. And got to give some love to the offensive line. If you are a loyal watcher of the show, you know I love offensive linemen, especially this guy. Andrew Norwell going to the Jacksonville Jaguars. 5 years, $66.5 million deal with $30 million in guaranteed money. He is a premier offensive lineman in both run blocking and pass protection. Graded out as the 3rd best guard last year, according to Pro Football Focus. Has never had a grade below 82.8 from his rookie campaign. Easily the most coveted offensive lineman in the free agency period. A ton of teams wanted this guy, talking about the Giants and the Colts and a few others as well. Nobody had the Jaguars on their radar to perhaps sign this guy. And they come out of nowhere, offer Andrew Norwell this massive contract, and immediately helps that Jacksonville offensive line that does have some holes. But I will say the interior is looking pretty good. Brandon Linder there at center is a good player. You got Norwell now at left guard. Solid center guard duo there. Right guard with A.J. Cann is still a bit of a concern. Somebody in the comments section recently said, "What are you talking about? A.J. Cann had a great year last year." No, he didn't. He was awful. He sucked. So the Jags have to figure out right guard. But let me say this. Jacksonville has an identity. They want to run the football. They want to impose their will on opposing defensive lines. And Andrew Norwell will help in that process to a T. This guy is a fantastic all-around player here. And I think what the Jaguars are trying to do is they're trying to win like the Broncos did back in 2015 with a brittled Peyton Manning who is wearing down, and they ended up winning a Super Bowl. All right? The Jags are going to try to do the same thing, except Blake Bortles is not old and brittled. He's just inept and not as good as other quarterbacks out there. I mean, let's face it. He was one throw away from going to the AFC Championship. I get that, or excuse me, the Super Bowl. But, you know, come on. It's Blake Bortles. So Andrew Norwell, number 10 on my list. Let's go to a number 9 here, and we'll go to the secondary here, but we'll stay in the AFC South. Malcolm Butler going to the Tennessee Titans. 5 years, $61 million deal with over $30 million in guaranteed money. Really important signing considering the Titans really struggled against the pass last year. They were 25th. All right, so Butler really helps there, solidifies things in that back end. You've got second-year player Adoree Jackson as well. Had a really good rookie campaign at cornerback. Kevin Byard is there as well at safety. Really good player. Jonathan Cyprien has to step up a little bit at safety, but if that happens, it's going to be a good secondary for the Tennessee Titans. Butler's a solid player, although he did rank 51st among qualified cornerbacks according to Pro Football Focus. He's better than that. And I'll say one thing. All of a sudden, the Titans have a very scary defense. And oh, by the way, he reunites with Logan Ryan at cornerback as well, former Patriot there. So you look at, from a macro perspective, this defense. Jarrell Casey on that front line. Derek Morgan, Brian Orakpo, Wesley Woodyard, Rashaan Evans, right? That rookie that they got out of Alabama. Fantastic selection. The Titans are going to be a bad team. When I say bad, in a good way. Like, they're going to be scary, especially on that defense with new head coach and Mike Vrabel there in town. Watch out for the Titans this year. All right, so got Malcolm Butler there at number 9 in the top 10 moves of the NFL offseason. Let's go to number 8 on my list here, and checking in is another member of the Tennessee Titans, Dion Lewis, running back. Can we just call this Tennessee team the Tennessee Patriots? Like, that's where we're at here. But talk about this running back duo from various perspectives. Fantasy, reality, whatever. Dion Lewis and Derrick Henry is going to be a premier running back duo. Dion Lewis is a good player. He went off last year, especially in the second half of the season. Over the past 3 years, the Patriots, all right, have posted a 32-4 record with Lewis on the field compared to a 13-7 record when he was unavailable. New offensive coordinator for the Titans in Matt LaFleur there, coming on over from L.A. He's going to have a field day with Dion Lewis. No player rushed for more yards in the second half of last season. Among all backs with 150 or more rushing attempts, his per-carry average of 4.98 led the NFL in 2017. Great threat in the receiving game as well, and he's not going to have to carry the football 20 to 25 times. That's not going to be the ask of him. So he's going to be fresh throughout the year, and the great news is, too, I would argue the Titans have a better offensive line than New England. With Jack Conklin and Taylor Lewan there as the tackle duo, like them a lot. Ben Jones at center. I know producer Harris likes to make fun of Josh Klein, but he was okay last year at guard. So, I mean, he's overachieving too. So, I think Dion Lewis is going to have a great year with the Tennessee Titans. Here's a macro question for you guys. Will the Titans make the playoffs in 2018? Let me know in the reaction poll. Give me a heart for yes and a like for no. I'll tell you this, I had them inside my top 10 in my latest NFL power rankings. So I'm buying in to the Tennessee Titans parade here. I'm thinking they're going to be a good team. Now, they're going to have to battle with the Jacksonville Jaguars and the Houston Texans and maybe even the Colts if Andrew Luck comes to town and is a healthy quarterback. A lot of uncertainty in this division. Could be hotly contested. All right, we've got Dion Lewis at number 8. In terms of my top 10 NFL offseason moves. Let's go to number 7 here, and it's Allen Robinson to the Chicago Bears. 3-year, $42 million deal with $18 million guaranteed. Talked about the aerial attack for the Bears earlier in the show, and it was essentially non-existent when you're talking about the likes of Kevin White, Kendall Wright, and Josh Bellamy, and Deontay Thompson, and all these guys. It's just like, not great. So, Allen Robinson, his best season came in 2015 when he caught 80 passes for 1,400 yards and 14 touchdowns. Now, he is coming off an ACL tear, which he suffered in Week 1, but Chicago desperately needed wide receiver help, and I think Robinson is really going to aid in that process, perhaps be the number 1 wide receiver on this team. If he can get back to that 2015 form, because 2016 was a bit of a drop-off for him after leading the NFL with 31 catches of 20 or more yards in 2015. Robinson had just 11 in 2016. All right, so however you look at Robinson and the PR that he had going into 2017, a lot of good stuff. People were raving about him in training camp and preseason as well. So maybe he was poised to have a really good last year. Unfortunately, the ACL tear happened. Think he'll be a great player for Mitchell Trubisky. Probably would have liked Jarvis Landry a little more just because of the way in which Mitchell plays the quarterback position, but Robinson's going to be a great target in the red zone. He's a good all-around receiver. They also have Taylor Gabriel. He'll help as well. We'll see if Kevin White can be healthy for 16 games. Stay tuned for that. But for Chicago, just want to talk about their team in general here. They're going to be good, especially that defense. Vic Fangio, the DC there, going to have a field day. And Matt Nagy, the new head coach in Chicago, is a good offensive mind as well. So Allen Robinson checks in at number 7. Let's go to number 6 for my top 10 NFL offseason moves. And it's Ndamukong Suh going to the Los Angeles Rams. So it's Aaron Donald and Ndamukong Suh on that front line. Need I say more? Honestly, the interior of this front line for LA is going to be unbelievable. But so is that secondary. They got an elite secondary. They got a really good front four now. There is some question marks about perhaps the linebacking core and all that, but they have the pieces, the Rams do, to make a big-time run in the NFC and then into the Super Bowl. So I think the Rams have the formula to win against elite quarterbacks. And what do I mean by that? Well, a lot of elite quarterbacks in the NFL, Tom Brady, maybe you can even say Ben Roethlisberger as well, Drew Brees, they're pocket passers. How do you disrupt their timing? Interior pressure. Who gets interior pressure better than anybody? Aaron Donald. Who's second? Probably Ndamukong Suh. All right? So interior pressure is going to be the game for the LA Rams. And that's going to force Brady and Brees and all these quarterbacks off their spots. So I like the Rams a lot. By the way, Ndamukong Suh had a really good year in 2017. Everybody's like, quick to say, he's a problem in the locker room and all that stuff, and that's up to your own interpretation there, but earned an elite grade according to Pro Football Focus back in 2017. So tallied 15.5 sacks, 181 combined tackles in his time with Miami, despite eating up double teams constantly. Like, teams game planned against him. So I'll tell you what, the Rams will be a force, and Ndamukong Suh will be a big reason why. He's at number 6. Let's go to number 5 here. Another Rams player, Marcus Peters, acquired from the Chiefs via a trade last February. So I've talked about this secondary, and it's shaping up to perhaps be the best in the NFL, even better than the Jacksonville Jaguars or the Minnesota Vikings or the Carolina Panthers or whatever. You got LaMarcus Joyner, Marcus Peters, Aqib Talib, John Johnson, and Nickel Roby-Coleman at slot corner as well. That is a good secondary. No, that is an elite secondary, okay? They're going to have a really good year in that back end, and Peters graded out as the 17th best cornerback according to Pro Football Focus a year ago. Slowly trending upward in that category too. Year in and year out, he is gaining in the ranks according to PFF there. Peters has 21 interceptions since the 2015 season. That includes playoffs. So 7 more than the closest player here. Look at this. It's Marcus Peters, then it's a drop-off. Reggie Nelson, Kurt Coleman, who's now on the Saints. Micah Hyde had a good year with the Buffalo Bills. Darius Slay, an elite player at the cornerback position. But Marcus Peters is the top of the line right there. Now, I'll tell you what. NFL teams may have big-time off seasons. The Dolphins have had big-time off seasons before. Of course, we know the Eagles with the Dream Team and all that. The Rams are this year's kind of dream team, if you will. Are you buying into the hype for the Rams this offseason? Give me a heart for you're buying in or a like for you are selling. Let's slow our roll here a little bit about LA. Let's see how they all mesh together on the football field, which I understand. Some people don't like to buy into the offseason hype a little bit too much. Mitchell Renz here in the comments section here on Facebook Live has a great point. A lot of big personalities, but he trusts Wade Phillips, which I think is a very important point because Wade Phillips has dealt with egos before and personalities before. He's dealt with Aqib Talib and all these guys, and of course Talib is now on the Rams. So if anybody can do it and create chemistry on that secondary, it's Wade Phillips. So there you go. Mitchell Renz, appreciate the comment. You too can be featured here on the show, just like you, Quita, which I probably pronounced wrong. You say no, that you are not buying into the Rams and the offseason hype. I appreciate the comment there here on the Cam Rogers Show. Keep hitting me up. We will feature you here on the broadcast. All right, let's go to name number 4 on my list. And it's a wide receiver. Talked about him earlier. It's going to be Jarvis Landry, who is now a member of the Cleveland Browns. So nobody actually thought Landry was going to stay with the Dolphins, despite getting that franchise tag. And I'll tell you what, he's going to be a great piece for the Browns offense there, headed by OC Todd Haley, who is new in town as well. Tyrod Taylor is presumed the starter until further notice. We'll see when it becomes Baker time. But right now it's Tyrod time, and I'll tell you what, this is a match made in heaven for Tyrod. Taylor likes to throw the football conservatively, and he doesn't like to throw the football deep down the field, right? That's why he doesn't turn the football over a lot, because he doesn't really take risks. Jarvis Landry is the ultimate chain mover, the ultimate third down receiver. He's going to fit perfectly with Tyrod Taylor and how he plays the quarterback position. So I think that's why I have Jarvis ranked higher than Allen Robinson. This is not just about the player itself, guys. So think about that before you start yelling at me in the comments section. It's about the overall opportunity and situation. And for Jarvis, the situation is really great. And you look at the Browns offense here, they're going to have to game plan around Carlos Hyde and Josh Gordon and other players like that. Maybe Jarvis Landry kind of flies under the radar here, right, and becomes a big-time receiver for the Cleveland Browns for whomever is playing the quarterback position. Whether it is Tyrod Taylor in week 1, whether it is Baker Mayfield, heck, Drew Stanton, who knows? So I like Landry a lot. I think he's a good player. He had over 100 receptions last year for the Miami Dolphins in a very bad quarterback situation with Matt Moore and Jay Cutler. Like, there you go. That just says all that you need to know there. So Landry checks in at number 4 on my list here for the top 10 moves this NFL offseason. I think I saw a comment about the 49ers. Well, perfect timing. Let's go to number 3 on my list, and it's Richard Sherman, cornerback now for San Francisco. 3-year, $21.15 million deal after being released by the Seattle Seahawks. He can earn up to $39 million roughly there, but it's reliant on many factors, like he's got to play a certain amount of games, has to win a certain amount of All-Pro honors and Pro Bowl appearances and all this stuff, so I won't get into the weeds there. But I will say this is a big-time signing because for so many weeks during the offseason, 49ers fans were like, we need a cornerback, we need a cornerback, we need a cornerback, we need somebody opposite Ahkello Witherspoon to solidify things in that back end. Sherman does that. And yes, he's coming off an Achilles injury, but he's still one of the great cornerbacks in the NFL. Is he a little overrated? Maybe, but I still think he is one of the top 7 cornerbacks in the National Football League right now, even with that Achilles injury in mind. Also, probably top 5 most intelligent football players in general in the NFL. He's in the class with the Bradys and the Mannings when he was playing. Sherman's a really smart guy. So he'll teach the younger players such as Witherspoon and K'Wan Williams and DJ Reed, who they drafted, how to be better players in that secondary. So Richard Sherman, big-time piece in that back end. And I'll tell you what, I think the 49ers have the potential to be a top 5 pass defense in 2018. I'm buying in. All right, we got Sherman there at number 3. Let's go to a number 2 on my list here. The Honey Badger himself, going to the Houston Texans. Tyrann Mathieu, 1-year, $7 million deal. Huge upgrade there in that secondary for Houston that desperately needed a playmaker. They got one in Mathieu here. Yes, he has durability issues, but he did play 16 games in 2017 and led the NFL in total snaps. So if he can carry that momentum into this year, that would bode well for Houston, which has good pieces on that defensive side, right? J.J. Watt, Whitney Mercilus, Jadeveon Clowney. If they can all stay healthy, then Houston will have a really rock-solid D there. Now, I think Matthew just needs a change of scenery here, right? Because he did struggle a little bit in 2017 with the Cardinals. It was kind of out of character for him to not have the best year as we thought he probably should have. But now he's going to a defense headlined and coached by DC Romeo Crennel, and he's a good defensive mind. So despite losing Mike Vrabel, Crennel steps in, and I think he'll do a fantastic job. The Texans have Andre Hall and Jonathan Joseph in that secondary as well. Aaron Colvin comes on over from Jacksonville, good slot corner as well. So Houston's in a good spot, and Tyrann Mathieu is going to drastically change the way in which they play their coverages in that back end there, and I think Romeo Crennel is going to have an absolute field day. So health is so important for Houston, but there is a ceiling of a top 10, maybe even top 5 defense for the Texans if they can all stay healthy. All right, so Tyrann Mathieu is at number 2 for my top 10 NFL offseason moves. Let's go to number 1 on my list. It is a quarterback, the only quarterback, Kirk Cousins. Now a member of the Minnesota Vikings. Fully guaranteed contract, $84 million. Easily the most coveted quarterback in free agency. Now, let me say this. He is not the best overall player on this list, right? I talked about this. It's all about the situation and the opportunity and the like, not just about the player himself. And the quarterback has to be at number 1. Because supply and demand in the NFL is so drastically high in demand for quarterbacks, and supply is so low, at least for quality quarterbacks out there. When you have people like Scott Tolzien and Tom Savage playing quarterback, that's when you know the position is in peril in the NFL. So with Kirk Cousins here, I think it's a fantastic signing for the Minnesota Vikings. Is he a top 10 quarterback? We'll see. Is he top 12, top 13? Probably. And I think he's a Super Bowl winning type of quarterback. He can get there and win a Super Bowl. Guys, Case Keenum took the Vikings to the NFC Championship game. All right? He'll have a great supporting cast with Dalvin Cook and Adam Thielen and Stephon Diggs and Kyle Rudolph. That offensive line has to figure itself out a little bit there. But if Kirk Cousins doesn't go to a Super Bowl during this 3-year contract, big-time buyer's remorse for Minnesota leadership there. All right, so Kirk Cousins checks in at number 1 on my list. Let's summarize my top 10 NFL offseason moves. We've got Ndamukong Suh at 6, A-Rob at 7, Dion Lewis at 8, Malcolm Butler at 9, Andrew Norwell guard there for the Jacksonville Jaguars at number 10, and then 1 through 5, there is Kirk at 1, Tyrann Mathieu at 2, Richard Sherman at 3 there, Jarvis Landry at 4, and Marcus Peters at number 5. You guys are watching the Cam Rogers Show here on Chat Sports Facebook Live, presented by the Game Time app. Get up to 60% off all those last-minute sports tickets, concert tickets, and so much more. Chatsports.com/tickets is the way to go. All right, folks, here on the Cam Rogers Show, we're going to transition to a little NBA talk here. Little LeBron James segment for you guys as we get you set for the Eastern Conference Finals. Celtics and Cavs for the second consecutive year here. A lot of headlines surrounding this series here. So what I'm going to do is I have my top 5 LeBron James playoff games versus the Boston Celtics. I will count you down from number 5 all the way to number 1. Let's do it. Let's go to number 5 on my list here for LeBron versus the Celtics. And we go all the way back to 2008 there. Eastern Conference semifinals versus the Celtics there. It was game 4. And let me summarize this for you in one sentence. With no regard for human life, James to the rack, putting Garnett on a poster. And what a highlight that was. Of course, LeBron's Cavs didn't win the series, but that highlight has stuck with me for quite some time. Yes, there was the block in 2016 against Golden State, but that call by Kevin Harlan is iconic, and with the Cleveland crowd reacting in this one, it was pretty awesome. Cavs actually won that game, as you see there, 88-77. Did not end up winning the series, though. The Boston Celtics went on, but James had 21 points, 12 assists, in this one, and it was just an unbelievable game. Just watching LeBron, who was young at the time, very young, early 20s, going ahead right to the rack and posterizing Kevin Garnett was probably a top 5 highlight all time for LeBron James in my eyes. I think the block is up there as well, a few others. But, man, that was some call by Harlan and some play there for LeBron James. So 2008 Eastern Conference semifinals against the Celtics. That's at number 5 for my top LeBron James playoff games against Boston. Let's go to number 4 here. 2012 we go, the Eastern Conference Finals against the Boston Celtics here in Game 7. I guess I don't have to say Celtics anymore. You guys already know that. So this is with James playing on the Heat here. So James played all but 28 seconds, finishing with 31 points, 12 rebounds to push the Heat to their second consecutive Finals appearance and eventually James's first NBA title. Right? So this game also signaled the end of the Big Three era for the Boston Celtics as Ray Allen went on to sign with the Heat in the offseason, and that was that. 101-88, your final score here. Miami victorious at American Airlines Arena. Boston owned a double-digit lead in this game and was still out front with 8 minutes to go here, but James and Chris Bosh, coming back from an injury, by the way, and the rest of the Heat were the fresher players in this game, and Boston was fatigued in this series by the time Game 7 came around. James's drive for a one-handed slam with 7:59 to play was that signature highlight there in that game, and Miami had been down a point but scored 8 of the game's next 11 points to open a 7-point cushion with little more than 6 minutes to play. Boston never got closer than 5 points the rest of that matchup there. 31 points, 12 rebounds, as I mentioned, for LeBron in that game there. Dwayne Wade had 23, by the way, as the Heat rallied from as many as 11 points down. So there you go. Big-time game there for LeBron, Game 7. We'll have one more in that series, by the way. Let's go to number 3 on my list, and it's the Eastern Conference semifinals. Game 5, LeBron with the Heat here, and the Celtics had knocked James out of the postseason in 2 of the previous 3 years at the time. So James had the Boston Celtics demons going into this series. The game was tied at 87 with 2:30 left. James went on a personal 10-0 run to close things out and erase any Boston demons that he previously had. At the end of this one, LeBron notoriously went down on one knee to acknowledge his accomplishment, and James had 33 points in this one. After the game, LeBron actually apologized about how he left Cleveland, saying, quote, the way it panned out with all the friends and family and the fans back home, I apologize for the way it happened. So that was kind of an interesting storyline there. So LeBron James, 2011 Eastern Conference semifinals, checks in at number 3 on my list for the top 5 LeBron playoff games versus Boston. Let's go to number 2. Back to 2017 we go. Eastern Conference Finals, but this time it's Game 1. And LeBron was just all over the court in this game, guys. Poured in 38 points in this one, along with 9 rebounds and 7 assists at the TD Garden. The Cavs had a 10-day break, and it didn't matter. 117-104 victory over Boston. Kevin Love was clutch as well. Had a playoff career-high 32 points and 12 rebounds at the time to help the Cavs improve to 9-0 in the first 3 rounds of the playoffs. So James scored at will in the first half, and the Cavs built a 26-point lead. Love opened the floor for James, nailing outside jumpers in this one. Boston essentially had to leave defenders one-on-one on LeBron in this game here. And I've mentioned this game before, how this, from an individual standpoint, could have been the best LeBron James performance against the Boston Celtics here. But there is one more that I do want to get to that trumps that. So that's at number 2, 2017 Eastern Conference Finals against the Celtics. This one here at number 1 is the best. Eastern Conference Finals, Game 6, Heat, Celtics, rivalry game. Heat down 3-2. LeBron put on an exceptional evening. 45 points, 15 rebounds, 5 assists. Went 19 of 26 shooting. James once called this game a defining moment, not only for him, but for his teammates and for the Heat franchise. All right, so an incredible display of basketball in this game, and this is when LeBron James became LeBron James. He had the killer instinct in this game. You saw it throughout the duration. He became LeBron that night, guys. 98-79 victory there with 45 points, 15 rebounds, and 5 assists. And just an incredible performance in that series. Now, they went on to lose the NBA Finals, and that's okay. But LeBron went off in this game, and that's why it's at number 1 on my list, guys. Incredible performance. So here's the summary here. Top 5 performances for LeBron against the Boston Celtics. Number 1, 2012 Eastern Conference Finals, Game 6. Number 2, 2017 Eastern Conference Finals, Game 1. Number 3, 2011 semifinals, Game 5, 2012. You got the conference finals again there with Game 7, and then 2008 Eastern Conference semifinals against the Celtics there in Game 4. So there you go, ladies and gentlemen. You're watching the Cam Rogers Show, presented by the Game Time app. Head on to chatsports.com/tickets to get up to 60% off all those last-minute sports tickets, concert tickets, and so much more. All right, folks, a final word here on the program. We're going to talk about the ongoing national anthem debate here in the NFL. And the latest development is that Colin Kaepernick has deposed head coach Pete Carroll and general manager John Schneider, there of the Seattle Seahawks. Talked about that during the NFL Headlines segment. But what is next? What is to come for Colin Kaepernick as we continue here? And I want you guys to let me know in comments here on Facebook Live as well as YouTube. What do you want the next step to be for Colin Kaepernick? Do you want him on an NFL team? Do you want him to drop the collusion case? Do you want him to continue to fight the collusion case? Here's what I think is going to go down. I think because collusion is so difficult to prove, what Colin Kaepernick, by the way, essentially has to do is prove that 32 NFL owners got in a room together and said, hey, let's keep Kaepernick out of the league. I don't know if he has the tape recordings or anything like that to show that. So what he's trying to do here is, I think, put pressure on the NFL owners to say, look, I don't want to go through these legal fees anymore and go through the process of these depositions and all of this when I can just sign Colin Kaepernick and he'll drop the collusion case. I think that's what Cap is trying to do here. Put pressure on the owners to make one of them, just one, that's all he needs, right? To give him a chance in the NFL. Can Colin Kaepernick be an NFL player from an ability standpoint? The answer is yes. Will Colin Kaepernick return to the NFL? The answer is IDK. I really don't know. But here is my thinking here in terms of what I believe Colin Kaepernick is trying to do. And I think it is trying to put pressure on NFL owners to make a quick decision and essentially bring him in to the NFL fray yet again. Now, why is Colin Kaepernick without a job right now? It's not his ability. It's the kneeling during the national anthem that went on in 2016 and all of this stuff. And Kaepernick, of course, has drawn interest from the Seahawks, also a little smidge of interest from the Baltimore Ravens as well. And as always here in the Cam Show, I want to hear from you guys. Are you okay with players kneeling during the national anthem? So Sean here in the comments section on Facebook Live says, you sound like you don't want him to play. Actually, Sean, I would like him to play because I don't want to watch Tom Savage and Scott Tolzien play the quarterback positions, Sean. I don't. Colin Kaepernick is way more exciting than the two that I just mentioned. Okay? And like I said, he's got a strategy, Kaepernick does, with this collusion case. Whether it works out, I don't know. But the debate goes on about the kneeling during the national anthem. And one final note here as I wrap up the program is that the NFL owners will meet later this month about the national anthem and perhaps create legislation that requires players to stand or even allows the teams to create their own policies in terms of the national anthem. So a lot of this stuff is moving, a lot of this stuff is changing, and we'll see what happens. All right, folks, this has been the Cam Rogers Show. Have a fantastic weekend. I will see you Monday, 10 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. Take care.